What's up, everybody? Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video, and we're jumping right into this absolutely crazy story, the ultimate freaking drama where there is death threats rolling around. There's just people just going nuts. Countries are pissed, players are pissed. I mean, this is a trip story. So our story starts with Brazilian team Vivo Kid versus an EU team Ascend. And yeah, it was a pretty interesting match, right? Where Brazil actually ended up winning. Vivo Kid ended up winning, but there was a competitive ruling after the fact. And I'm gonna show you right here, this camera spot is actually not allowed in professional play. It's technically an exploit because you can look through it up above, but enemies down below can't look through that exact same crack. Meaning much like any freaking Valorant bug or abusable bug, it is banned in, pro play, period. You're not allowed to use it. So remember, we're talking about champions, the champions event with regions where regions are being represented from all around the world. This is the biggest esports tournament we have seen, period. And the Vivo Kid team used this camera in 6 rounds. 6 rounds the exploit was used, and it was not called out by anybody. The observers didn't realize it, no one at Riot realized it, and it wasn't until after the game where Vivo Kid won that they're like, hey, this is an exploit. So what they did is the 6 rounds where he used that camera spot, which was technically banned, they gave those rounds to the other team. Those rounds were forfeit, and because of those rounds combined, because of the economy, they awarded an additional round to Ascend. So then the final score ended up being Ascend 13-9 Vivo Kid, and it flopped the result of the match. Now I'm gonna be really careful here. Only 1% of our audience is Brazilian. I'm not trying to offend any of you before we move on, so don't send me death threats like, y'all have been sending to a lot of other people, because Ascend tweeted this out. The team Ascend said, quote, "It's sad that we have to say this every time we lose, but here it goes. We know that wasn't the performance y'all wanted to see, but this is no excuse to spam us or our players with toxicity and hatred. Keep it classy, guys." Where players were getting freaking death threats all over the place, and things just got mega freaking toxic. Now, also, people blew up talking about Sentinels doing the same thing, but it was actually proven that Dapper was doing a slightly different cam that was not a bug exploit. Now, going back to the ruling though, a lot of people disagreed and were on Brazil's side. 100 Thieves Asuna tweeted this out saying, "This is the worst rule enforcement I have ever seen, wow." And there is a discussion point to be made there where it's like, hey, they used it, but no one caught it, and they basically just gave them an auto loss basically for it with no warning. Now, on top of that, a lot of people are blaming Riot for this problem because this exploit has been out since freaking September, and it's never been fixed, like right before this big major event. Now, something that's important to understand is that this bug is actually listed in a giant list of prohibited bugs specifically for tournament rules. Now, we're not allowed to read these, and people are like, what the heck? Why can't we read these if these are accessible to pros and pro teams? Well, the reason is they don't want to just give like a giant list of all the exploitable bugs that people can use in rank. That's the big reason why, but it definitely contributes to a little bit of lack of transparency. Now, there's also a lot of people that think that it's Brazil's fault. Like, they would have gotten the auto loss anyways because this has been a known freaking bug that is an exploit, and a pro player should know and a pro team should know what qualifies as an exploit. And you should know overall that this is something that wouldn't be allowed. And so the punishment is on the fault of either the players or the coaches or the team as a whole. Now we're at this juncture where there's EU players getting death threats, there's Brazilians mad as hell, and there's no really great ruling, if I'm being honest. And then, of course, the Sentinel boys just add on to the fire. So Shazam tweeted out and said, "Should have called a tech pause." And for those of you who don't understand what this is talking about, Shazam was actually up against Furia. Sentinels were up against Furia, and Furia was winning. Furia had a lot of momentum, and then there was just a randomly really long tech pause that happened for a very long freaking time. It was like 25 to 30 minutes. And a lot of people felt like it stopped Furia's momentum in potentially beating Sentinels, and that tech pause shifted the momentum in Sentinel's favor. Now, whether that's true or not true, I think it doesn't really matter all that much. But regardless, a lot of people were freaking pissed. And even on top of that, Shazam was allowed a bathroom break where in a previous event in Iceland, they didn't allow the Brazilian players during a tech pause to go to the bathroom. So then there was like all these accusations of racism and just like all this like nonsense and craziness that came from this. And someone that is obviously Brazilian responded to what Shazam said, which is like roughly translated to, you know, like suck a dick or something like that. Something really insulting towards Shazam based on that take by Shazam. And then Shazam responded saying, "I'm just making light of an uncomfortable situation. You refuse to accept what actually happened and choose to be upset. These games should bring us together. Have some fun." And then a Brazilian commentator responded, quote, "Your joke antagonizes an entire region/country and fuels an already shitty situation. We should be the grown-ups in the room." And then Zoms replied stating, "Can't wait to beat your shit region again." And this is just freaking Zoms not caring at all about who he pisses off, because remember, Furia was a Brazilian team, and this is just adding more fuel to the fire and, you know, more toxicity to the fire. And then Gustavo responded saying, quote, "Doesn't matter, you'll still be rude and unprofessional." And Zom said, "Oh no." So yeah, that was the back and forth. Even Sick put like this Left 4 Dead, be ready to fight the Horde. And yeah, like Zoms is just adding, you know, fire on top of this freaking bonfire that is just craziness. I mean, there's already death threats flying around, people pissed off, unfair rulings. I mean, it doesn't feel fair in any direction. And yeah, it's just a complete mess. Now, to add on to this, the Valorant Champions Tour actually tweeted this out, quote, "Upon further deliberation, matches in Group A will be delayed to provide additional time to review the ruling against Vivo Keed. Today's matches will feature Team Vikings versus Gambit and Team Liquid versus Sentinels. Broadcast will begin 1 hour later than initially scheduled." Now, this caused a completely different actual wave of backlash, because people are really pissed that if you just complain enough and get pissed off enough on Twitter or at Riot, you're gonna get your case re-looked at, which is not a precedent that they've done before. But because of this, they have, and now it's gonna set this precedent where it's like, if you don't think something is fair or if you're pissed off, you can just rage about it and get something changed with Riot. And a lot of people don't like that at all. Now, on top of that, a lot of people are super pissed off at George G as well, who is a Valorant reporter. And yeah, he tweeted out this and said, "Can't spell Brazil without an L." And oh my God, man, oh my God. And freaking Shanks said, "Bro has a death wish." And NRG Flex Ninja said, "We're fucked through association with George, GG." And Jesus Christ, man, like, what is this actual? This is actually the worst. Now, of course, to add one last bit of fuel to the fire, Zoms tweeted out saying, quote, "Imagine an entire region, fans, influencers, casters, players, trash talking over nothing. Then when you say anything back, they all start crying and calling for punishment from Riot." Oh my God. Now, if I'm being honest, I'm really sympathetic towards Brazilians and the Brazilian region and the Brazilian players. Like, I understand that you feel slighted, and I understand that it doesn't feel all that fair. But in my personal opinion, if you actually care, at the end of the day, the coach of the Brazilian team should have caught that that was an exploit, or the players themselves should have caught that that camera was an exploit, and never ever used it. It's better to catch yourself and not use an exploit. Now, should Riot have caught it mid-game and maybe gave you a warning and maybe a lost round? That would have been far better. And we do need to hold Riot accountable for not doing that correctly and not doing just, you know, getting rid of it. They could have done that as well, but it's not, you know, Ascend's fault. It's none of their players' fault. Getting pissed off at them or sending them death threats, it's none of their fault. And, you know, yeah, I know that the Sentinels boys maybe shouldn't have, like, you know, jumped in on this, but you know, when you start with death threats and you start with so much anger and toxicity, you can't help but getting some pushback. And that's exactly what happened. So at the end of the day, you know, you're not eliminated from the tournament. You just need to grind back, prove you're the best, and just win without any exploits, without any bugs. And that's all you gotta do. No point in festering on this any longer. But I do know that Zoms isn't going anywhere fucking near the Brazilian region like anytime soon. But yeah, for those 1% of you, you know, I actually looked at the analytics. The 1% of y'all that are Brazilians, I'm sorry that yeah, I probably just lost 1% of my fucking audience. God, no, I really appreciate y'all being here and hearing me out at the very least, even if you don't like me anymore. But thank you so much for coming by. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please smash that like, subscribe. I love your faces. Go to the GameLeap website right now for in-depth tips and tricks, VODs, and so much more. And I'll see you next time.